Welcome to Reverent and Rebellious, a safe space for faith-based conversations on the things that nobody seems to want to talk about these days. We are reverent, we value truth, we elevate scripture, but we are also rebellious. We shatter myths and we destroy dogma, so jump in. Join us, Logan, Pat, and me, the brother Peter, as we get reverent and we get rebellious.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
Pat,
what's up with you?
Oh, man,
Not
look
much,
at
man.
Pat. Pat's got fireworks going.
Well, I'm at my house, so I can do that inside.
That was fancy. I
That
don't know
was
what you
fancy.
did to do that, but that was
Put two
very
thumbs
fancy.
up, man.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It won't do it now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well,
Mine
you
won't do
jinxed
that.
no, I'm just the regular standard.
Yeah. Ain't nothing happening over here.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We are doing this remote again. So we do this just every now and then. When somebody gets sick in the family, we just jump online. Here we go.
Yes.
How's everything going, Logan? In your
Man.
house that has sick people in it?
It is going right now. Like I said, my wife she's hanging in there, and I've told her, because I'm telling you, this might be the sickest she's ever been. Like this flu has been horrible. My wife has the flu, for people that don't know.
Yeah.
And I told her just a little while ago before I came out here, we were talking, and she still feels like death. And I said, I cannot get this flu. And I said, I am a typical man. I cannot handle this. And she goes, you would not handle this flu very good.
And then Mother Nature says, hold my root beer.
Yes. Yeah, so I've been loading up on the vitamin C and everything else. I'm trying everything possible to dodge the bullet.
Hey, look, Logan, I got a way where we can feel like I'm still in the studio. If I can just sink my chair.
Do it. Sink your chair.
And you need to air it up a bunch, raise it up about 8 times.
And then just as we go, just let it sink down.
Sink on down.
No,
everything's going good here, man. Everything's going good.
Love it. Love it. Everything's okay at my house, as far as I can tell. We're just, rolling right along, and I'm trying
You're on the mend?
Yes, finally. That thing, man. It was some wild strain of bronchitis.
Really?
And I had locked my throat and my chest, and then it went all up into my head. And I hate it. I just hate it. But it was okay. We made it through church on Sunday, and I made it through a whole, 79-minute sermon, and everything was okay. we had a long service Sunday, because we baptized 3 people, accepted 2 into membership, and we had a little missions video that we watched, and it was just like, we're gonna make up for lost time.
But
you
it
had
was
some
good,
people probably mad at you come lunchtime.
Well, I told them up front. I said, you are not beating Methodist to the buffet line today. It is not going to happen. So just plan on lingering a little while. I looked at the video, and it was like an hour and 23 minutes, which was actually better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But
there you go. Yeah. They were like, I sure am hungry, but man, that was a good sermon.
It was a little dense, It had a high caloric count,
Yeah.
Which I try not to do that too often, but that particular scenario, it's like, what do you leave out?
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So I just like, well, they're just going to have to learn how to chew.
Yeah. Yep.
That's it.
That's all there is to it.
That's it.
We do. Well, before we get in much further, you know what we need everybody to do?
Oh, yes. And exactly what you need to do.
We need y'all to hit that like button, hit subscribe, leave us some ratings and reviews, hit the thumbs up, hit the little bell so that you know when we drop a video on here. And I think even on the podcast side, I'm pretty sure you can set alerts on like Apple and Spotify so that when a new episode drops, you get alerted, because you want to be alerted. You want to know as soon as these episodes drop, so you can be the first person to listen to them.
That's exactly right. I actually use a podcast app called Overcast, and I love Overcast. So it's a little shameless plug. It doesn't cost you anything, but man, the way it organizes podcasts, the way it notifies me every time, and it makes it super easy to ding, leave a review and a rating and all the stuff. Yeah, I can just go right to it anytime I get inspired. So, check it out. You might enjoy Overcast as much as I do. I love it.
Yes. Pat, did we get any good comments?
We got one comment.
We got one comment, and it's from Aunt Ruby. Well, there you go. My aunt's hanging. She's a trooper.
Yeah. Aunt Ruby says a very difficult viewpoint on a very different viewpoint on the two witnesses, and the way you lay it out makes total sense. I appreciate how you back up everything you say, even though sometimes my brain gets overwhelmed with information. It seems to me God is making great efforts to give everyone a chance to accept Christ. Maybe that's why Calvinists don't like to do a thorough study of Revelation. Why would God give people so many opportunities if they don't have a choice?
Hey, Ruby, I love you even more today than I did yesterday.
I'm gonna give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll have to go in there and give that one a thumbs up too. That's great.
And here's the other part of it too is I know that we're reading Revelation a lot differently than a lot of people. And I get that part of it. And so, I certainly don't want us to come off as either arrogant or a bunch of know-it-alls or like everybody else is wrong. We're the ones that are right. All we're trying to do is to just be as faithful to the actual text as we possibly can in its genre, in its context, and the way I think one of the keys to this whole thing is the way it relates back to the Old Testament. I just, and some of these things are so compelling. They're so obvious that you just can't ignore that. You can't just set it aside and say, no, it's all about the future. The people in the Old Testament have nothing to do with the New Testament. No, it's all connected. When you begin to do that, you begin to see a completely different picture of Revelation and the message behind it. And then all of a sudden you realize this is how it would have made sense to those churches at that time. Yeah. And how it can make sense to us at the same time.
Yep.
So, like I said, I'll say it every time. We don't claim to have gotten every little detail right, but I believe that this is a much more faithful way of reading this book than jumping all over the place trying to make charts and timelines and graphs and pretending like we know what's coming next.
Peter said, we didn't get it right, but y'all got it wrong.
That's right. That's right.
That's a good way of saying it, actually. And I can say this with some experience and authority because, I have had Revelation presented to me in 49 different ways. I've been in the church since birth, and y'all know how old I am. And so, I've heard the fundamentalist view of Revelation. I've heard the Pentecostal view. I've heard the charismatic view. I've heard the mainline Methodist Presbyterian view. I've been through it all. And each time I would hear that, it was like, man, this does not sit right with me.
Right.
Jesus said that nobody would be able to figure this stuff out as far as a timeline goes. He said, don't even try with the timeline stuff. And so how then do we do this? And then, just about 3-4 years ago, discovering, actually it was 5 years ago now, I discovered one scholar, then I discovered another, then another. And by the time I went through the book 3 times in this very consistent scholarly way of looking at this story, all of a sudden it's just like, wow. There are pieces falling into place that never fell into place with all of those other systems, if you will. And you can go on about amillennial, premillennial, postmillennial. You can go through all those different terms. Honestly, I'm going to be very controversial here, but
I thought you were going to say Post Malone.
Uh-oh.
Post Malone, yeah, he probably has a view of Revelation as well, right? But I just don't think we can put these numbers on apply them literally to anything. I don't think there's a 7-year tribulation. I don't think there's a 1,000-year reign.
Right.
I think all of those things. So I'm anti-millennial. There you go.
Well, I'm a
he's against
Peter.
us, Pat. He's
Yeah, we're
anti me and you,
millennials.
Pat.
That's it. Sorry, you millennials out there.
No, I agree, man. And that's what it's been for me. I've told y'all this has been really eye opening going through Revelation, because it's always been, again, a book I've enjoyed, but I've never really understood it. I've enjoyed a lot of it because I just like fire and
I
skeletons
know.
and
But
death
what
and
is
all
it
that
actually
stuff.
saying?
Yeah. But
It's
I'm like, what? Yep. And again, it's a, I keep saying this. I'm gonna keep saying it until I guess we're done with Revelation. But it's a hopeful book.
Yes, it
It
is.
actually is a very encouraging, hopeful book.
Yes,
And
it
yeah,
is.
that last one, my aunt that commented, like, I couldn't agree with her more on the fact that it's like God, he does not want to condemn you. Like he doesn't want you to be apart from him. And
That's it.
so it's like he's keeps giving you chances, chance after chance after chance. And unfortunately there will still be people that, given many, many chances, will still not choose
That's
him.
right.
Not yeah, and I love the little dig in there that she put. That was great.
I love it too. So
Man,
before we get into chapter 12 is where we are today. And chapter 12 is wow. On the surface, it seems like there are a few things that are obvious, but there's stuff, man. There's stuff all underneath the surface that we're not going to unpack all of it in one session, but we're going to get a lot of it. We're going to certainly get the message of it. But before we do that, I want to know: have either one of you ever had a chameleon?
No.
No, I had a chameleon one time, but it was unable to change colors. It had erectile dysfunction.
Uh,
Yeah,
I like that. I
that's
can't
good.
give you the drum beat. I don't have it on here.
I know. I might have one myself. I don't know. Let's see.
There you go.
No,
It's kind of
there it is. Yes. Okay, so I got another one. These two preachers are having lunch, and one of them's waiting for the other one. The other one comes walking up and he sits down. And he says, "Man, dude, where's your bike?" And he said, "You would not believe this." He says, "Somebody stole my bike." How could you steal the preacher's bike? That's the most ridiculous thing. And the guy says, other preacher says that. And here's what you do, man. He says, when you preach this Sunday, you preach on the 10 Commandments. And when you get to the thou shalt not steal, you just start wearing it out. And you scan the room, you scan the congregation, you look and see who's getting nervous and who looks a little agitated. And then you know who stole your bike. That's a great idea. So they get back, have lunch the next Monday, and one of them's at the restaurant, and the other one, he rides right back up on his bike. And he says, "Oh, man, you found your bike." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, did you preach on the 10 Commandments?" He said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Well, when you got to thou shalt not steal, did you really just start wearing it out?" And he says, "Well, funny thing about that, I got as far as thou shalt not commit adultery, and I remembered where I left my bike."
I was expecting. I was like, this got to have something to do.
That's good.
So,
Oh man, that is good.
there you go. I remembered
That's
where I
good.
left my bike.
That's great.
So, anyway, enough frivolity. Let's get down into serious business here. Revelation 12. We've got, now remember, 10, 11, and 12 all go together.
Yeah.
Right? So 10, we got the little scroll. John's supposed to eat the little scroll, and it's going to be sweet and bitter at the same time.
Yep.
And yet he's given the commission. Yeah, no matter what's going on in this world, no matter how bad it gets, the message must go forth. It must be preached and prophesied. Okay. So we got that. And then we got to chapter 11, where we saw the two witnesses, which is the twofold people of God. We landed on that, and we realized that the vehicle of the message that was given to John is going to go out through the churches, which makes perfect sense because the letters to the churches, John is supposed to write these letters to encourage them to keep going, to encourage them to keep preaching. Don't compromise with the culture, don't fold, don't fade, don't give up, keep preaching it no matter how bad it gets. Okay, so we've got the two witnesses. They are squelched and they are stifled, but yet the breath of life from God comes into them, and they are this great witness. And many people at the end of the chapter or at the end of the scene repent but then we saw the seventh trumpet, which is, the capper on the whole cycle of trumpets. And we got these worship words, and we got these creation words, and we're going to destroy those who destroy the earth. And then the temple, remember, at the end of that chapter is revealed partially. The doors, the garage door lifts, and there's the temple and the ark. And we saw the lightning and the thunder, and we added a great hailstorm. So we got the message, we got the vehicle of the message, the impact of the message. And now here is what we get the message. I'm just going to read. I want to read the first 6 verses, maybe, and we'll talk about it and see what you get right off the top. Okay. So it says, and a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign appeared in the heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems. And his tail swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to earth. The dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, which isn't that the definition of a son? I don't know. Who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that there she might be nourished for 1,260 days. There we see that number again. Okay. Yep. So, Logan, what do you get right off the top? We got 3 characters, right? We got the woman, we got a dragon, we got a child. Any idea what that might be?
I'm taking it. I'm guessing that this is symbolic. Is what I'm going with.
It's right not Lady Gaga, and
Yeah. Is this like the one? Okay. Man, we talked about this. I'm trying to remember what this is, because I remember the 7 star, like when the tail wiped away the 7 stars.
1/3 of the stars from heaven. Yeah.
Yep. Man, I'd be stretching if I tried to remember offhand.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll go over some of that because we're getting symbolically, basically the core message of the gospel.
Yeah.
So, Pat, who is the child? Let's go with the easy one.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's Israel.
No, actually, the child is Jesus. The woman is Israel.
Oh, the child. Yeah, the child is Jesus. The woman is Israel.
Right. And of course, the red dragon is
Satan.
Yeah, it says it in verse 9, plain this day. So,
but isn't this also a call to the celestial that's playing out in the celestial kingdom as well?
So, yes, John is doing something. I mean, remember, this is a vision given to John by God. He is funneling it back through to this apocalyptic imagery, so that they'll get all the key words. Okay.
Yeah.
So the one thing we cannot ignore right off the bat is the first words, and a great sign appeared in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So he's really just signaling that this whole chapter is going to be about Jesus, because it is. And you may not track that all the way through, obviously, but it's all going to be about Jesus. And what he's doing here now, he's going to make reference to the woman. He's going to make reference to the child, to the dragon, all this stuff. But what he's doing here is he's giving us a non-earthly, non-literal presentation of the Christian story. He's giving it from a cosmic perspective.
Cosmic, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. This is what was going on in the heavens then. This is what is going on in the heavens now. And this is what will continue to go on in the heavens until it all comes to a culmination. And so it's like why is the world going crazy? Why are Christians being opposed? Why are the persecution? Why the stuff? And he just relates he intertwines it all together in a great big ball. So the first thing that we cannot ignore is the astrological component here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. Apparently Logan didn't like that.
He's going to check the drones.
That's it. We need to go check for drones. So you remember, once again, our episode on what day was Jesus born. You can get this in much greater detail there. But suffice it to say, in 6 BC, if you follow history back through these astrological software components, you can track all the way back as far as you want to go as to what was happening in the sky, in the heavens at any given time. So around 6 BC, there was an alignment between Jupiter, Venus, and the star Regulus. Remember that?
Yep.
In the constellation of Leo.
Mm-hmm.
So Jupiter is the king planet. The star Regulus is the king star.
Yep.
And the constellation of Leo, the Lion of Judah, is the king of the constellations.
Yep.
So you have the king, the king, the king. At the same time, the sun was in the constellation Virgo. So you have Virgo, a woman clothed with the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at this time, the moon, if you were to look at this image in the sky, the moon was situated below this whole alignment. And so, and also the 9 stars of the zodiac plus 3 of the planets were aligned at the top of this constellation.
That's right. I remember.
So
you
yeah, you have this once in a lifetime practically. Now it has happened at other times in history, but very, very rarely. But you have this exactly what John is outlining here. The great sign appeared in heaven: a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And then you have the star Regulus, you have Venus, Jupiter in Leo, all at the same time coming together, overlapping to make a big giant star, a king star. And so, it said that the wise men, the Magi, who came to visit Jesus 2 years, probably just under 2 years after he was born, had seen this in the skies, and they knew what it was because of Daniel's presence in the Eastern countries. He was the head of the Magi. He would have related all this stuff to them. They saw it. They knew exactly what it was, and they knew that it was a king of the Jews, Jesus. Yep. And so what John is doing here is saying, here it is, the cosmic gospel, and it begins and centers and ends with Jesus. Yep. It's all going to be about Jesus. This is the big signal that everything was about to change, that Jesus was about to come. God was incarnating himself in human flesh. Okay, so we got that part. She was with child. She cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. Okay, so we know this woman is the nation Israel. It is the converted Jews. Mm-hmm. And then later on, it is literally the combination of the converted Jews and the converted Gentiles, the people of God. And we'll see why that, it morphs as this chapter goes along. So by the time the chapter ends, you can see clearly that it is the New Testament church. It's the post-Pentecost church. And so the woman is an image of, old and new. So, mm-hmm. So I want to go through a few little scriptures here because Israel and even some of the messianic prophecies talk a lot about Israel being a pregnant woman. Mm-hmm. So, Pat, look up Isaiah 26, 17, and 18. That's going to blow your mind. Logan, look up Isaiah 66, 7 through 9. Now I'm going to look up Micah 4, 9 and 10.
66, 7 through, you say
7 through 9.
Okay.
7 through 9. Yep. Jonah, Micah, Nahum. I have to say those every time. Micah, yes. Okay. Pat, you got your Isaiah 26?
Yes, sir.
Go for it.
All right. Isaiah 26, verse 17 and 18 says, as the pregnant woman approaches the time to give birth, she writhes and cries out in labor pains. Thus we before you, O Lord. We were pregnant, we writhed in labor, we gave birth, and it seems only to one. Is that wind or wind?
Wind.
We could not accomplish deliverance for the earth, nor the inhabitants of the world born.
Yeah, he says we were pregnant, we were in labor, and we gave birth to wind because we failed. We didn't give birth to the one that you wanted us to give birth to.
Now this says that word born is literally fallen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so read Isaiah 66, 7 through 9.
Before she traveled, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she gave birth to a boy. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Can a land be born in one day? Can a nation be brought forth all at once? As soon as Zion travailed, she also brought forth her sons. Shall I bring to the point of birth and not give delivery, says the Lord? Or shall I, who gives delivery, shut the womb, says your God?
Yeah. So you can't deliver before you have pain, right?
Yep.
You got to go through the labor process.
Yep.
If you're going through the labor process, do you think I'm going to make you go through the labor process and then not deliver?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole thing there. Now, in
Unless
Micah,
you're delivering wind.
if you're delivering wind, yeah, I've delivered wind very recently. Yeah. Micah 4:9 says, "Now why do you cry out loudly? Is there no king among you, or has your counselor perished? That agony has gripped you like a woman in childbirth." That's that one. And then Micah 5:3 says, "Therefore he will give them up until the time when she who is in labor has borne a child. Then the remainder of his brethren will return to the sons of Israel." So, and then, there's an even better one. In Isaiah 51, listen to this one. I saved this one for the last because it's the best. Isaiah 51, 2 and 3. Here's the way it reads. It says, "Look to Abraham your father and to Sarah who gave birth to you in pain. When he was one, I called him. Then I blessed him and multiplied him. Indeed, the Lord will comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places, and her wilderness he will make like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and a sound of melody." And he goes on for quite some time, but then he talks about later on about destroying the dragon, the sea serpent. And so we get all of this connecting. Oh yeah, it's 9 through 11. That's what it is. He says, "Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake as in the days of old, the generations of long ago." Now, this is a very key word here. "Was it not you who cut Rahab?" It looks like Rahab, but it actually means the serpent, the dragon. Mm-hmm. "Was it not you who cut Rahab in pieces, who pierced the dragon?" He says, "Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, who made the depths of the sea a pathway for the redeemed to cross over?" Lots of Red Sea imagery there, but basically he's talking about Israel being the pregnant one with the deliverer who's going to slay the, okay. So then think about, do you remember Joseph's dreams back in Genesis 37? The reason his brothers got so angry with him, he dreams about a sheaf of wheat, and then the 11 other sheaths of wheat will bow down to it. And then he has a second dream where he sees the sun and the moon and 11 stars all bowing down to the other star, which is obviously Joseph, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the sun and the moon and all the stars bowing down to Joseph. Okay, so there we see the astral imagery there. It all relates back to Genesis 3:15, which is the curse, if you will, on Eve. And he says, in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Genesis 3, 15 and 16 is right here. It says, and I will, it's talking to the serpent, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel." He's talking about the offspring of Eve, right? He's going to bruise you on the head. You will bruise him on the heel. And then to the woman, he said, "I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain, you shall bring forth children," and so on and so forth. But then it talks about how Eve's going to give birth to an offspring who is going to crush the head of the serpent.
Mm-hmm. He should have, they should have mentioned in there something about, my wife's got the flu and us telling y'all, I could get it. And they should have mentioned how for a man, the equivalent of childbirth is, being sick, having a cold or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the
It's
same
basically
thing.
the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Well, see,
Women don't know what we have to go through.
They
Yeah.
don't.
I
They
like
don't.
in Genesis 3 where you break down what it literally says. It's not just childbirth. It says your pregnancy, conception, and delivery.
Yes,
You know, it's the
absolutely.
entire process.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
there's even some sort of inference there that it is in the raising of the child as well.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's like the whole child thing will be complicated
Yeah.
Yeah.
from here on
Yeah.
out. Yeah. Okay. So then we get to verse 2, and you know, she was with child. She cried out, being labor and in pain to give birth. Okay. So then it says, another sign appeared in the heaven. Behold, a red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head were 7 diadems. Now, one thing we're going to see in this chapter 2, and John's just going to complicate things, because he's going to get into some secular myths as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on those, mainly because I don't know them very well, because I've not studied many, secular myths. But I do know they exist, and I do know that John uses this because probably 4 or 5 other ancient Mesopotamian myths have 7-headed dragons, 7-headed beasts, 7-headed, this is like a theme that they would have been familiar with. And so that has something to do with this. Also, it has a lot to do with the fact that 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 diadems. These are empires. These are kingdoms that persecute and oppress God's people.
Now, a diadem, doesn't that just mean a crown?
It's kind of like a crown, only it is more like a metal or a precious stone that is set into a turban.
Okay, gotcha.
Priests had diadems on their turbans, which were on their foreheads and things like that. So slight difference, same effect, same kind of imagery there.
Gotcha.
So we're thinking here, chaos, sea monster. We're thinking Leviathan. Now, one of the images for Egypt was a serpent or a dragon. I want to just go through a couple of these. Logan, look up Psalm 74, 13 and 14.
Okay.
Pat, look up Psalm 87:4 and Psalm 89:10. They're right next to each other. 87:4, 89:10. I'm going to look up Isaiah again, and I'm going to go to Isaiah 30, 51, and 27. So go ahead with Psalm 74 when you get there.
All right, 13 and 14.
Yep.
Okay. You divided the sea by your strength. You broke the heads of the sea monsters in the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness.
That's it. There's Leviathan. There's the dragon.
What, in that instance, what is he talking about?
He's
he literally talking about Leviathan?
He's using the Leviathan image. He's actually talking about Egypt in this particular scenario. But he's also talking about all of the chaos and all of the empires of the world as well. He's using Egypt as an example, referring back to the Exodus and all those kinds of things. And he's using the whole sea serpent thing, mythical sea serpent, to describe what he just is like.
Gotcha.
Pat, read Psalm 87:4.
I shall mention, is this Rahab or Rahab?
Rahab. That's the same thing. That's serpent. Yeah.
All right. I shall mention Rahab and Babylon among those who know me. Behold, Philistia and Tyre with Ethiopia. This was born there. This one was born there.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Same. Remember Tyre, Sidon, Bashan, Mount Hermon, Caesarea Philippi, which is what we talked about Sunday. All of that is the headquarters of the gods.
Now, this where they're using Rahab here, does this also mean Egypt?
No, Rahab is another. It really would be almost synonymous with the Leviathan.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It's a serpent, sea dragon, chaos creature.
Now, Mount Hermon, that was where you said they considered almost the gateway to hell.
That is, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was Baal's headquarters in the Old Testament, and then in the New Testament, it became the gateway to hell. Yes,
gotcha.
Exactly. So, did you read Psalm 89:10 yet?
Not yet.
Okay, do that one.
You yourself crushed Rahab like one who is slain. You scattered your enemies with your mighty arm.
That's it. Same kind of deal. That's another psalm referencing Egypt and the Exodus and all this stuff. If you go to Isaiah 30, verse 7, it says, even Egypt, whose help is in vain and empty, therefore I have called her Rahab, who has been exterminated. Pretty obvious reference there. But then you go back to the Isaiah 51 passage in verse 9. I read part of that before. Was it not you who cut Rahab in pieces, who pierced the dragon? So we're getting all of this, serpent kind of image. Now we're getting kind of a bigger picture of who the dragon is. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we know, we're going to see in verse 9 that it says it's that serpent of old, that, it's Satan. It's Satan. But we want to get the picture of the dragon as being the systems and the empires and the kings and the rulers of this world, powered by, animated by, with the, Satan. It's the power behind it all. If you look at Isaiah 27:1, he says, in that day, the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, with his fierce and great and mighty sword, even Leviathan, the twisted serpent, and he will kill the dragon who lives in the sea. That's what we're getting here when we look at this. Another sign that appeared in heaven. And if you want to go ahead and tie back into the astrology thing, you get the woman clothed in the sun with the 12 stars, the whole, the giant star with Regulus and Leo and all this stuff. Well, directly underneath, this would be underneath the area where the moon was situated, is this kind of this space in the universe or in our galaxy where there appears to be very few stars, like almost no stars. And so when it talks about his tail in verse 4, his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. That they're talking about that empty area there. It's as if somebody just took something and wiped out all the stars there. They just don't exist. What's that?
That's what the the Sumerians called the seven-headed.
Okay, well, there you go. See, there you go. There's the seven-headed dragon, his seven-headed beast.
Pat just drew that.
Yeah. Now,
Pat just drew that for us.
Yeah. Well, I think Peyton just drew that.
It's called Mussag 7.
Okay.
Muskag?
Mussag, like MUS-SAG.
Like Mussag Sally? You got to slow your Mussag down?
Yeah, Eric Clapton drew that.
Okay, so a lot of people will tell you, have lots of different theories about verse 4. And many people will say, well, we know that when Lucifer fell, that a third of the angels went with them.
Yeah.
This is like before the fall of mankind, there was a rebellion in heaven, and Lucifer fell, and he took a third of the stars with him. Because look, it says it in Revelation. The only problem is it's not what Revelation's supposed to do. It's
right.
That's not. It's not his purpose. And so, I used to laugh when Michael Heiser would get this question asked to him. He would just go crazy. He would just start freaking out. It's like, no, this doesn't mean the third of the angels are demons. And just go on and on. He's like, how many times do I have to say this? It kind of appears a little bit obvious. His tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth. So when she gave birth, he might devour her child. Okay, so here's a couple of reasons why this cannot be the case. Because if you just look at the scenario, you have this woman who is about to give birth. This is Israel about to give birth to the Messiah, because the Messiah comes out of the line of David, which is why God had to keep these people preserved, so that the bloodline would be maintained and everything. So the Messiah is about to come, and all of a sudden, what do we get? Lucifer falling now, and a bunch of the angels falling now. I think he's been around for a while,
right?
Yeah.
He was back in the garden.
Exactly. So do we just go, oh, we're just going back in time now.
God let them back in. He's like, come on, just come back.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll try this again.
Yeah.
I've chosen. I've re-elected you.
Yeah, Lucifer got up off the mat and he's slapping him down again. No, it just doesn't make any logical sense at all, even prophetic sense, because you just got the timeline all backwards and messed up. And there's another example of that we're going to look at in a minute. That is, when all you have to do is just think about it for a second. It's like, stop and let's think through this. Here's Israel, just about, we're toward the end of the Old Testament now, really, in the imagery. That's not when Lucifer falls. So
well, I was going to say, I feel like
not,
that pretty well destroys the argument that would be what he's referencing here, the third of the angels, because I mean, that little simple snippet there of being like, okay, so did he he's not going to let them back into heaven to refall. That definitely makes sense to me.
Right. And so we have to ask the question then, if it's not that, then what is it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens.
It's got to be. It always comes back to aliens, doesn't it?
It does. It's aliens.
That's exactly right. Skinwalker. It's what
they went to New Mexico. Yep. That's what it is.
It's the satellites, man.
Yeah. They were thrown down to New Mexico. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yep.
No,
it is about America.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Clearly. Yeah. Oh man, we are rebellious a little bit right now. Okay, so. And also, kind of the general consensus is that the angels fell and became demons, but fallen angels are not demons. Demons are they're the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. All that stuff. So it's not. It's just not any of that. Once again, it's symbolic of the power that the dragon has, and so I want us to consider a couple of things. It is okay. There's some language in Judges and again in Isaiah about the stars going to war with each other, and I think it does have some of the implications of rebellious Elohim that would follow the influence of Lucifer, the dragon, Satan. But it's not that they're not fallen angels, this, that, and the other. I do think it is, that this dragon has such influence that he not only wears the crowns and the heads of the rulers on earth and is empowering them, but also it has the idea that there will be other rebellious Elohim that follow him. But Pat, look up Judges 5:20. Logan, look up Isaiah 24:21. They're both quite interesting.
All right. Judges 5:20 says, the stars fought from heaven. From their courses they fought against Sisera.
Yeah, the stars fought each other. That's a very bizarre kind of image, but it's clearly right there. There was, we're going to see in verse 7, there was war in heaven. So we're just put that on the table there. Read Isaiah 24:21.
So it will happen in that day that the Lord will punish the host of heaven on high and the kings of the earth on earth. Yeah.
So that there's something happening there with the hosts of heaven. Yeah. And we've visited that passage before. I think it's a very important passage in helping us understand, just the whole cosmic, unseen realm kind of thing. So I think what we're seeing here is the absolute, the enormity of the power of this dragon in the heavens and on the earth. Like this is an evil force with lots of power, lots of influence. Its power is spread, everywhere.
Yeah.
It says the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. Logan, what kind of imagery do we get from the early days of right after Jesus' birth that would suggest that somebody wants to devour the child?
When the king there is trying to kill all of the firstborns. Herod.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, who is behind that? Well,
the devil.
It is.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, he issues a decree to kill all the babies under 2 years old, all the male babies. He wants to devour her child. Yeah. She gave birth to a son. We're into verse 5 now. It's a male child. Surprise, surprise. Now this is who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. We have like wore that image out. Isaiah 66:7 is going to, in fact, I'm sure we've been there before numerous times, because this image was used when John saw the vision of Jesus. 66:7 says, oh, no, that's not the right one. I wanted to get to the rod of iron. Where is it? Let's go to, here's the other one. Oh, yeah, that's the one. Psalm 2. Psalm 2. I'm going to go back to Psalm 2.
Okay, I was looking in Isaiah 66 for rod iron. Like,
I know, it's not there. It's not there. I probably wrote down the wrong Isaiah chapter. I got so excited.
You shouldn't take so many notes.
I know.
Well, that phrase we just read in Judges about going to war with the stars, that's from the Song of Deborah. It
is. It absolutely is. And you remember we went to the Song of David. Remember that? To get a lot of that, that earthquake and lightning imagery. David's song is like all kinds of cosmic stuff in it. So is Deborah's.
Mm-hmm.
Why is she singing about the stars fighting against one another?
Right.
It's because it's more than just an earthly battle that they just won. It's a battle in the heavens as well. That's why I love that. Okay, so Psalm 2 says, I will surely tell of the decree of the Lord. He said to me, thou art my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will surely give the nations as your inheritance, and the very ends of the earth as your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall shatter them like earthenware. So how about it? So that's, it's so clear that it's Jesus. It's not even funny.
This commentary says that Isaiah 30 verse 14 is referencing that.
There you go.
It says, whose collapse is like the smashing of a potter's jar.
Yeah,
so
that's the one I was looking for.
That's a shared, would not be found among its pieces, to take fire from the hearth or to scoop the waters from the cistern.
That's the one. Bingo. You get the gold star, Pat.
That's why you make Isaiah the big 30. Bucks, Pat.
That's it. I'm going to pay you double. Oh, look at the thumbs up.
There he goes, still doing all this
I want cute
stuff.
Tricks like that. Yeah,
I know.
I love it. Yeah, it's not going to do it again, Pat.
It won't do it unless.
No, it's like there it is. It's narcissist protection. They will only let you congratulate yourself every 30 seconds.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I love it.
Not too many pats on the back here. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yes. Okay. So this is a cool part of it here. That she gave birth to a son, a male child, who's real all the nations, all that stuff. Okay. So, and her child was caught up to God into his throne. So John just skips all of the stuff until Jesus ascends. He wraps it all up. He's like, oh yeah, you remember, rule with the rod of iron. You know what that means. He's going to be born. He's going to, minister for 3.5 years. He's going to die. He's going to be raised again. Oh, and he was caught up to God in his throne. So there you go. And the woman, Israel, the people of God, fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God so that there she might be nourished. Here it is again. 1,260 days. Okay. Yeah. So here we go. A woman, the people of God, flees into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God. Clearly, we see Exodus language here, right? Wilderness, manna, Exodus 16, gave them the bread from heaven, provided for them. He took them around a special way so they wouldn't have to go through. Did you know that it was only 11-day journey from Egypt to the promised land? But it took him 40 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah. It says he was not going to take them the direct way because they would have had to go through the land of the Philistines and they never would have made it. They would have turned around and gone back to Egypt. Yeah. So he took them all the way around. So, he used that time to teach them, to nourish them, to protect them, to demonstrate that he was always going to be there for them and is powerful, and gave them water from a rock and, all the stuff. So it's clearly that, but it also, there are other themes in the Old and the New Testament that sort of follow this. Exodus, the story of the Exodus is the most repeated story in the entire Bible. Really? So many references to Exodus. It's just like crazy. If you took the story of the Exodus out of the Bible, you would just literally rip half of it out. So we see this pattern in Elijah. Elijah calls down fire from heaven and everything, and he's whisked away into the wilderness where an angel feeds him, and all that kind of stuff. Of course, Moses kills the Egyptian. He goes out into the wilderness to tend the sheep. Then we pull it forward to the New Testament. We see Jesus was led by the Holy Spirit where? To the wilderness.
Yeah.
Now, he was exposed to the temptation of the devil, but then at the end, the angels come and minister to him. So there you go. And this also references the protection promised to the people of God. That when the times go toward the end time, that the people of God would be scattered, or they will run to the hills, but they will be protected. They will be provided for. So this is kind of where it begins to morph beyond just Israel, and it begins to turn into this is the now people of God. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you connect this here. If you connect it to the temple language in chapter 11, and the resurrection of the two witnesses in chapter 11, you get to see how John is kind of morphing this Exodus language into the spiritual Exodus. Now it's about Jesus, right? So Jesus brings the final Exodus. In other words,
yeah.
Okay, so we got up to this point. Now I want to read 7 through 10. And we're gonna do some stuff to make some sense out of this too. We're gonna go a little faster through the rest of the chapter because it just sort of moves faster. But if you don't get the first 6 verses, nothing's gonna make sense. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Verse 7: There was war in heaven, Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels waged war. Now, you can ask yourself, okay, well, when did that happen? Well. It happened a long time ago, and it happened not so long ago, and it's happening now, and it's going to happen. But this is really, okay, I'll read it, and then I'll make my statement. And they were not strong enough, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. Here we go. Didn't they just get thrown down? How come they're getting thrown down again?
Because he let them back in again.
Yeah,
man.
they keep letting them back in.
He's a nice guy.
I know. The great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old who is called the devil and Satan. So if you're wondering who the dragon is, it's the serpent of old who is called the devil and Satan.
There you go.
Who deceives the whole world. Now, think about this. We're thinking back now to the Garden of Eden. That serpent deceived 2 people. This serpent deceives the entire world. Okay, so that's intentional there. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, who accuses them before our God day and night. Okay, so it does get confusing because we get thrown down and then thrown down again. And then now we've got the, our accuser, and you got okay.
He's
so
thrown down a lot.
It's a big throwdown. That's what it is. If you track this thing all the way through the first 6 verses, you see that these 4 verses right here are all about the cross. This is the event of the crucifixion. This is what was going on in heaven when Jesus was dying and then being raised again.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to read it again. Put that in your mind, and it all just magically starts to come into focus. Listen to this. Think about the crucifixion, the resurrection, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon. And the dragon and his angels waged war. And they were not strong enough, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old who was called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth. His angels were thrown down with him. And now listen to this. And I heard a loud voice. Remember, a loud voice. All through Revelation. Loud voice. Majestic, mighty angel voice. Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. Boom. For the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, who accuses them before our God day and night. Here's the deal. Remember when Jesus died and he went down to the underworld, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're down to Hades.
Yep.
He set the righteous free.
So metal.
It is.
Yes.
He preaches to the captive spirits. What is he preaching? You ain't getting out. You're not getting out. And not until the angel unlocks the abyss. That's so. But then what happens is Jesus retakes dominion. You know, we have some of these key language in there. You know, Jesus takes back the keys, basically. So now Satan has no authority in the heavens. So it's not like he's thrown out of heaven, like he was in heaven. He was not in heaven at that time.
Yeah.
Right.
He was thrown down from having dominion in the spiritual realm. And so if the signal here with salvation, kingdom of God, authority of his Christ, that means that if you are a Christian, if you belong to Christ, then Satan now has zero power over you from a spiritual standpoint. That he can control the empires of this world. He can influence those who reject Christ. He can do all of these other things, but he has no authority, power, dominion, say, and he doesn't even have the power to accuse you before the throne of God anymore. In other words, he's locked out. He is no longer the prince of the power of the air. He is now just a created being who can create havoc and chaos using whoever will follow him.
Yeah, that checks out.
What do you think?
I think you're right on there.
Yeah, I mean now he at that point he still will have power on earth.
He has power with whomever will follow him. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, sometimes complete control.
So, so would you say that the only authority that he has is authority we give him?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think that's the key too, because Jesus wouldn't be the savior that he is if Satan still had unlimited control over whatever he wanted. I think that's a testimony to what he says right here in Revelation, where he says, what verse was it? Verse 10, where he says, and the authority of his Christ have come. Yeah, that's what he says. It's the authority, because Jesus has the authority now to tell Satan's like, no, you cannot oppress these people unless they let you, unless they say, let's do this.
Yep. God will not violate our perfect free will.
Yeah.
So, there's been the question asked for, a long, long time. Can Christians be demon possessed? Answer is no, cannot. Right. Can Christians be influenced? Oppressed?
Absolutely.
Put in chains even sometimes? Yes, absolutely. So that's like saying, could a Christian be addicted to something? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who's behind that addiction? It's the dragon. It's the red dragon. Yeah. But the minute that child of God reaches out for the power that is accessible to him or her in the heavens, then that's broken. The kingdoms of this world are now the kingdom of our Christ.
Yeah,
which is what we saw in the previous chapter. So this is why Paul will say we don't war against flesh and blood, but against rulers and authorities and powers. All that stuff that he says there. We do war against them, and we make the mistake sometimes that we are warring against people. That we have, we're warring. Our enemies are people, but it's never people. It's never, we have political wars, we have culture wars, we have, all these different, ways that we think we need to be fighting for this and fighting for that. And, some will say, well, yeah, but, who's going to defend Christianity? Who's going to defend Jesus? It's like, excuse me.
He doesn't need us to do that.
No. And the way that we wage spiritual warfare is to understand who our enemy is, which is not other people. And it's not even governments and systems. It is the power behind them. I was
just going to ask, do you think that that's why we get it twisted, is because, a lot of every time that we are personally attacked, when the enemy works through someone to get to us, instead of seeing the enemy behind that person, we see the person, and that's where it stops. And we think that's the origin of it.
And see, this is where verse 11 comes into play. Verse 11 is one of the key verses in this whole thing because, so we see the origins. We see the woman, the people of God. We see the child who was birthed out of the people of God. We see the wilderness. We see, the child is born, all this stuff. And then we see this cross event, war in heaven. And now all heaven declares the authority of the Christ has come, kingdom of our God. And then it says in verse 11, and they, well, that's, God's people, right?
Yeah.
They overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony. And they did not love their life even to death. Okay, so what character have we seen in this narrative that overcame by dying?
Jesus.
It's the Lamb, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And the Lamb has the power of the lion, but he got the power of the lion by becoming the Lamb.
By the way, as Logan would usually point out, the Lamb is capitalized.
Yes, there it is.
I see that.
There
I got to
it
change.
is.
I really got a cool looking font that I use on my little Bible app here.
Yeah.
It looks awesome, but you got to really look to notice because they're all caps, but there's some that are like extra capped. But it's just a slight difference. Now that you say that, I see it, but you got to really be looking.
I know. So, I love that font. I look at it every time.
Look at Logan being hip. He's going cap or no cap?
Yeah, man. Cap.
Extra cap.
All cap, man. All cap.
Exactly
I don't know what that means. So maybe that's good. Is all cap
actually
good?
It's not. No, cap is a lie.
Oh, no cap. No cap, dog.
That's right.
Well, the word of God is a lion. Like that's what I've always thought about. Because that's kind of, I am guilty of getting mad whenever, I've shared before working with people that were non-believers and they like to push my buttons and they could do it successfully. And I was like, well, I need to defend this because this is what I believe in. And so
I know,
like, it's like, I'm not going to let you talk about God like that. And so you get mad but then it's like, at the end of the day, God doesn't need me to do that. Like, yeah, I mean, I do want to punch him in the face for Jesus sometimes, but that's not what I'm called to do.
You know what's so funny, man, as Peter had just said earlier, how so many people are like, we need to defend the gospel, we need to defend Jesus, and your story right there, it's so true. But we got it completely backwards. Is because when someone offends us or something like that, or attacks us, whatever the case is, our immediate response is we need to get them back, or some people they cower down, whatever the case may be. But see, and that's where we got to realize is we're in no position to defend Jesus. That's why Jesus came to defend us, because that's our nature.
Yeah. And see, we don't overcome by fighting in flesh and blood.
Right.
We overcome, by fighting the spiritual battle. And it's so wild because if you look at the Sermon on the Mount with those lenses on, when Jesus says, love your enemy, that's how you overcome your enemy. When he says things like, if somebody, strikes you on your right cheek, let him strike you on the other cheek. That gives you power. That gives you a different kind of power over them. If a soldier gets down off his horse and says, hey, you need to carry my pack a mile, then you get to the end of the mile and you say, hey, man, your horse looks tired. I'll go another one. He can't stop you from doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, you now have just taken away the power that is animating that whole exchange.
The old saying, and I've used this a few times, and it is kill them with kindness.
Yes.
That is the most lethal thing.
True.
Like, I have used that
but it's
just
the hardest
recently.
To do. It's hardest to do, though.
It is, but like in regards to social media, especially when I see somebody do that, because I was just telling my wife today what a cesspool social media is. Everybody's arguing, and immediately the arguments they turn really personal. And I'm like, nobody talks to each other like this in person. Like nobody says these things face to face. But that's what I'm. When you do happen to scroll through and you see a dude that, keyboard warriors, man.
These make people invincible.
They do. But when you see people, one guy, and he stays calm and kind, and he never gets to that, man, that dude is clearly the victor in the scenario.
He wins the internet. Absolutely.
He does.
Yeah. And this is the cool part of it, because then you go on to verse 12. It says, and so they overcome with they overcome with sacrifice and surrender, the same way the Lamb defeated the forces of evil. He allowed them to kill him, and then he rose again. But then it says, for this reason, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Did you get that line? You dwell in the heavens.
People whose residency is in heaven.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, which is chaos, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has only a short time. You remember we talked about how the powers of evil were not aware of God's plan. If they'd have known God's plan, they would have never killed Jesus. Yeah. They never thought that they could actually kill God forever. They know what the end's going to be. They just want to buy some time.
Yeah.
They want to play this out as long as possible and take as many people with them as possible. Destroy as many people in the meantime.
Can we start using the phrase in the literal like that, where it says, for this reason, rejoice, O heaven, and those who dwell in it? That literal word is tabernacle. Can we start saying, I tabernacle in heaven, bro?
I'm telling you, we don't use the word tabernacle enough.
We should. I tabernacle all the time. I'm a tabernacle in heaven.
Well, in John 1, when it says the word became flesh and dwelt among us, that's the word tabernacle.
Yep, it tabernacled.
Yeah. Those who tabernacle in them. Yes. Why would we not?
We need to start using that.
My little footnote here in my God's Translation, New American Standard 95 Bible, has a little one by it. And if you look over to the footnote, it says tabernacle. It's the exact word.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit tabernacles here, man.
That's it. That is it. It is the dwelling place of God. It's a portable. We are portable temples. That's what we are. So he has the devil has come down to you. That's his only domain now. Only domain is within those who choose him, having great wrath, knowing he has only a short time. And then verse 13, when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth. In other words, when the dragon saw that he was locked out of the heavens, that Jesus had tricked him, all of heaven had tricked him. He thought he was going to be able to buy him some more time. Now he has only a short time. Mm-hmm. Because now Jesus has taken back the dominion that Adam and Eve gave away when they were influenced by Satan, the dragon, right? He saw that he was thrown down to the earth. He persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. Who is the woman who gave birth to the male child?
Israel.
It's the people of God.
Mm-hmm.
See, now he has fully morphed this ancient Israel thing who already birthed the Messiah. Now, I want you to kind of get this. This throwing down happens after Jesus ascends. Because remember, he ascended in verse 5. Okay?
Yes.
Now, he wants to explain in verses 7 through 10 what happened in the meantime, what was going on before this child was caught up to God and to his throne. And so he describes cosmically this whole scenario with the cross and the war that was going on in heaven, and the fact that the people, the believers, overcame him because
pre-calculus and trigonometry.
Thank you, Siri.
Oh, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, it's a little demon vibe there.
Yeah.
She just wakes up every now and then. It's kind of comical.
Yeah.
But then it says, they overcame just the same way the Lamb did. The people of God overcame. Rejoice, woe, all this stuff. The dragon has been thrown down. Well, he's been locked out of heaven because Jesus died and rose again and ascended.
Yeah.
So there we go. So he persecutes the people of God. The church now, those two components there. Okay, so the woman who birthed the child and the offspring. Okay, so and it says, and the two wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, in order that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she was nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. Okay, so we already had the woman flying off into the wilderness, escaping into the wilderness, right? This is, but now we have the woman given the two wings of the great eagle. Okay, so this is rescue from death. The first time the word salvation is used in the Bible is in Exodus. where Moses is standing on this on the banks of the Red Sea. Egypt army is coming right at them, and they're freaking out. And Moses says, "Don't fear, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." And then it's funny because right after that, God says, "Why are you standing there? Raise your staff." Mm-hmm. So he's telling the people, stand still, see the salvation, the rescue from certain death. Okay, so this is the idea here that the dragon is going to persecute the church, the believers, the people of God. But the two wings of the great eagle. Okay, so there's two images here. Pat, read Exodus 19:4. Logan, read Deuteronomy 1:31 through 33. And I'm going to read Deuteronomy 32:10 through 15. So as soon as you get
Exodus 19:4?
Exodus 19:4. Yes, that's right.
All right. Exodus 19:4 says, "You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself."
Yes. Okay. Rescue. All right. Read Deuteronomy 1:31 through 33.
"And in the wilderness where you saw how the Lord your God carried you, just as a man carries his son, in all the way which you have walked until you came to this place. But for all this you did not trust the Lord your God, who goes before you on your way to seek out a place for you to encamp, in fire by night and cloud by day, to show you the way in which you should go. Then the Lord heard the sound of your words, and he was angry and took an oath, saying," do you want me to read 35?
No, that's okay. That's good. That's good. Deuteronomy 32:10 through 15. He found him in a desert land, and in the howling waste of a wilderness, he encircled him. He cared for him. He guarded him as the pupil of his eye. Like an eagle that stirs up its nest, that hovers over its young, he spread his wings and caught them. He carried them on his pinions. The Lord alone guided him, and there was no foreign God with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, and he ate the produce of the field, and he made him suck honey from the rock and oil from the flinty rock. Curds of cows and milk of the flock with fat of lambs and rams, the breed of Bashan, and goats with the finest of the wheat, and of the blood of grapes you drank wine, so on and so forth. It's all the eagle stuff. It is rescue. So God is going to rescue his people from certain death, even from certain death. And it goes on for, once again, nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence, from the face of the serpent. Okay, so now we get to the last kind of big image here. And this sort of completes, though, it sort of, I don't know, puts a capper on it. It brings it all up into what would have been present time in John's day, and it will be present time in our day as well. So we got this water stuff going on. It says 15, "And the serpent poured water like a river out of its mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth. The dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus." Pat, who are those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus?
The believers.
Yeah. He's been saying that all along, right?
Yep.
Why is he on the island of Patmos in exile? Because of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus, right? So here we go. So that verse right there gives us the final piece of the puzzle. If we were wondering who the woman is, if we were wondering who who overcame, if we were wondering who who got carried away on the wings of the eagle, well, John brings it all home right there. Just like he brought it all home with calling the dragon, that serpent of old, the devil and Satan. I mean, he just leaves there's nothing else to ponder there. So what do we make? Go ahead.
Is the water like influence? Is that what that would be? The influence of the serpent trying to influence the people of God?
Yes and no. Yes, that's one component of it. But we're going to find out some really cool stuff about the about the flood. The flood. Okay, so immediately this brings us back to Israel, the Exodus, the Red Sea, right? Okay,
yeah.
So And there's a lot of this language in it. We're going to look at some in a minute. But there are also 3 different images in the Old Testament of a flood. One is a flood being vast armies that spread out and set themselves up against another nation. Specifically, in this case, in some of these verses, it would be Israel. So, Pat, look up Daniel 11. I'm going to give you 4 verses: 11, 10, 22, 26, and 40. Logan, look up Psalm 88, 7. I'm going to go back to Isaiah. You got the Daniel one, Pat?
Yeah.
Right,
Daniel 11:10 says, his sons will mobilize and assemble a multitude of great forces, and one of them will keep on coming and overflow and pass through, that he may again wage war up to his very fortress.
Yeah. Now read verse 22.
The overflowing forces will be flooded away from him and shattered, and also the prince of the covenant.
And read 26.
Those who eat his choice food will destroy him, and his army will overflow, but many will fall down slain.
And read 40.
At the end time, the king of the south will collide with him, and the king of the north will storm against him with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships, and he will enter countries, overflow them, and pass through.
Yeah. So you get this whole flood overflow, this water thing going on here through that whole chapter. What does Psalm 88, 7 say?
Your wrath has rested upon me, and you have afflicted me with all your waves. Selah. What is Selah?
That means pause for a moment. It's time for a guitar solo.
Gotcha. Yep, with all your waves.
That's it. So Isaiah 8, 7 and 8, it says, now therefore, behold, the Lord is about to bring on them the strong and abundant waters of the Euphrates. It's the king of Assyria and all his glory, and it will rise up over all its channels and go over all its banks. Then it will sweep on into Judah. It will overflow and pass through. It will reach even to the neck, and the spread of its wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. How about that?
Say a lot.
So, yeah, there you go. Okay, so we got the flood being armies. We also have a flood being divine judgment. Pat, look up Psalm 32, 6. Logan, look up Psalm 90, verse 5.
All right, Psalm 32, 6.
Yeah.
Therefore, let everyone who is godly pray to you in a time when you may be found. Surely in a flood of great waters they will not reach him.
There it is, flood of great waters. What's the 90, verse 5?
You have swept them away like a flood. They fall asleep in the morning, they are like grass which sprouts anew.
So there you go. God's going to send a flood in judgment. But it also, there's a picture of the persecution of God's people from which God delivers them, this flood idea. So Logan, look up Psalm 18, 4, and then read verse 16. Pat, look up Psalm 66, 12, and then 69, 1 and 2.
Okay.
I'm going to read 2 Samuel 22, 5. This is David's song. He says, for the waves of death encompassed me, the torrents of destruction overwhelmed me. That was the persecution by Saul. And he sort of couches that in flood terms. So Psalm 18, 4, and then 16.
The cords of death encompassed me, and the torrents of ungodliness terrified me. And then
ungodliness. 16.
16. All right. He sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of many waters.
Many waters. Yep. Okay. So Pat, do 66, 12.
You made men ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, yet you brought us out into a place of abundance.
There you go. Now 69, 1 and 2.
For the choir director, according to Shoshanim, a psalm of David, Save me, O God, for the waters have threatened my life. I have sunk in deep mire, and there is no foothold. I have come into deep waters, and the flood overflows me.
That's it. And Isaiah 43:2 says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they will not overflow you. Persecution of God's people from which God delivers them. That's really mostly what we're looking at here. It is, and there's a reason why we see so much of this Exodus imagery through this, because you remember that Jesus timed his arrest and his execution to be on Passover week. And so when Jesus sat down for what we now know as the Lord's Supper, it was a Passover meal. And, there's all these different kinds of things. You can look this up, how a Passover meal goes and all the different elements. And there's supposed to be this, that, and the other. And every time you pick something up and you consume it, the host will pass it to everybody. And there's a saying. It's either a scripture or some sort of, sacred saying that they're supposed to say with this particular element. And when you did the bread, I'm not going to get all this exactly right, but I'm going to give you the gist of it as I remember it. But basically, you break the bread into three parts, and it's supposed to represent something that had to do the unleavened bread from, they had to get up so quickly and so on and so forth. And Jesus takes it, and they expect him to say what is always said, but instead he switches it up on them, and he breaks it, and he says, "This is my body."
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to be broken for you. And then when he gets to the cup, the wine, there's three little glasses of wine that they're supposed to do in a particular order. And each one of them, it's a symbol of redemption and of liberation. This is how God brought us out of Egypt, out of slavery. He liberated us from slavery. And Jesus, he's supposed to say something about the water and the Red Sea and, liberation. And instead he says, "This is my blood." So he's saying that there is a new Exodus, that he's not going to free you or liberate you from slavery by people. I'm going to liberate you and free you from slavery to sin.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so this is one of the reasons why, John is he's seeing this vision in front of his eyes, and he's using all this Jesus language and all this Exodus language all at the same time. To put this all together. And so even when it comes down to the astrology, the great sign in heaven, well, everybody knows about the great sign in heaven. That's why the wise men showed up, right? And then he's talking about the dragon, stood before the woman, he might devour her, and then it goes, gave birth to the one who's going to rule the nations with a rod of iron. That's so obvious. It's like, and the wilderness, and then you got the war in heaven, and you got salvation, you got authority, and you got the loss of dominion by Satan, and he's thrown down, he's locked out of heaven, and he has no more power. He can't call himself what he used to be able to call himself, and he can't accuse anybody before the throne of God. He can accuse you to your face, but he can't accuse you to the Lord, because the Lord knows you, and the Lord has declared you not guilty. And so he has no power to do that anymore. And then we're talking about the persecution of the church, but don't worry about the persecution of the church, because we got protection in the wilderness, just like the Israelites were protected in the wilderness, and so on and so forth. And we got this flood. And here's the most interesting part of this flood thing. Okay, so we got armies, we got judgment, we got persecution of the church. It says the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river, which the dragon poured out of his mouth. Okay, so Pat, read Exodus 15:12 real quick.
All right.
You're going to love this.
Exodus 15:12. You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them.
Yeah. So we always get this picture of Pharaoh's army, and then Israel, the sea parts, and they go across on dry land, and they all get to the other side, and the army's saying, "Well, let's go in after them, let's go get them," and they all get in there, and then the sea closes over the top of them, and we're picturing heads bobbing and spears floating and all these kinds of stuff. But actually, it says the earth opened up and swallowed them.
Yep.
There wouldn't be nothing bobbing around in there.
No, and whether that be literal or symbolic, it is referencing the entrance to the underworld.
Yeah.
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 Like it was evil personified in Pharaoh, who was called the Great Serpent. I mean, you can't get any more serpent-ish than Pharaoh, who wore a crown with serpents on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, and so it says the earth, and here it says the earth helped the woman.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you get this imagery of, people are going to come after you, come after Christians, attack the faith, attack the church. All this stuff's going to happen, but the earth will help you. It's going to open up. It's going to swallow all that filth.
Do you think a lot of people would interpret that incorrectly to where they think, okay, well, that means the world is going to be corrupted and come after you?
Sure. There's various different ways that you could read this sideways and backwards and everything.
I've heard that, maybe not verbatim, but it's been years ago, as I've heard that taught that way, is that the earth will be corrupted, the people around you, people of earth will be corrupted, and they will come after you as well. But that's always been my question, is because it says, but the earth helped the woman. Like the enemy is not going to help you by getting swallowed up by the earth. It's
yeah.
And it kind of goes back to the last chapter where it says, you will destroy those who destroy the earth.
Yeah,
the earth is on God's side.
Right.
If you want to kind of give the earth a personality, if you will, Paul does. He says all creation is groaning, waiting for the revealing of the sons of man. Here the earth is helping. It's like, oh yeah, this persecution is coming after you like a flood. Well, I'm just going to open myself up and swallow it up.
And then verse 17, it says the dragon was enraged with her.
Yes,
and then went on to make war with her children.
He realizes that he cannot destroy the woman, the people of God. And so he's just going to, he says, make war with the rest of her offspring. Well, who were the rest of her offspring? It's the generations of Christians to come.
Yeah.
And gosh, I mean, I don't want to go into a big, long diatribe about all the different, waves of inconsistency and corruption in the church, but there's been, church has had some ups and downs. I think Satan's made war with her offspring more than once.
Man, this makes perfect sense though. I'm gonna do a plug for a documentary I just watched yesterday. It's called Surviving Black Hawk Down. And when you talk to the interviewer, when he was talking to the people of Mogadishu, they were saying that they had been treated so poorly by some of the soldiers that were there. In their mind, it was, I don't care if I just destroy one piece of American equipment. If it could drop one soldier, it doesn't matter. If I can do that, I call that a success. And they knew they couldn't win. They knew they couldn't destroy America, but they didn't care. As long as they can inflict damage along the way, that's all they cared about.
Yeah.
And I see that right here. Satan knows he can't win, but he's going to try to inflict as much damage as he can.
Just to hurt God, basically. Yeah.
Because if you hurt us, it does hurt God.
Yeah.
And to gratify themselves,
Yeah.
And it kind of goes right along with the story that I heard that more people were killed in a short amount of time after World War II was officially over than right before. Because the defeated forces just went on a rampage. They just killed everything they could find.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the war was over. They'd lost, but they wanted to inflict as much damage as possible.
And that's historical too. You see that in the Civil War. After the Civil War,
yes, for sure.
A lot of battles fought. After World War I was fought, a lot of battles were fought.
Yeah. So there you go. He's enraged with the woman, goes off to make war with the rest of her offspring. Who is the offspring? Those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. So go ahead.
One question. I got a footnote here. It says some translations put the Greek phrase in verse 18. It says, and the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore.
Yes. That is in mine. That is the first verse of the next chapter.
Mine too. I was just wondering why they moved it from one to the other.
I heard that. Now the ESV I think is one of them that uses that as verse 18. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I wish I knew, honestly, right at this moment.
I'm gonna see if ESV has it.
Yeah, that's what I was looking it up right now. Yeah, actually, it does. It says here at the end, verse. It's a part of 17. It's got, then the dragon became furious with the woman, went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus, and he stood on the sand of the sea.
Yeah.
13 opens. Yeah, it just says, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
it doesn't say what. Because it's not like when they were translating it. It was there was no chapters and.
No, they put they put them in there arbitrarily. I suppose it just kind of depends on how you see. Does that end the chapter 12 or does it begin chapter 13?
Well, the Lord's version doesn't even have that in there. Either chapter.
What you talking about NASB?
King James version, it doesn't even have that. It just 17 ends with have the testimony of Jesus Christ. 13 opens with, and I stood upon the sand of the sea.
Well, ain't that something?
So they just took it out. King James wasn't having it.
That is crazy. I gotta look that up.
Yeah, why is it not in there? Now NIV. All right. See, he's got it. All right, I see what they did here. I see what they did on King James. So King James version at the beginning says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea." Or no, so they kind of weirdly put it in there. Didn't they? Kind of. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. So the dragon's not standing on the sand of the sea. John's standing on the sand of the sea.
Yes, and he sees the beast rise up out of the sea.
Man, that is wild.
But that's not how it reads on these.
Well, but mine has a little footnote here that says some manuscripts read "I stood."
Well, this is kind of odd. Looking at 13 I'm back to NASB 95.
Yeah.
This is odd to read. 1, and the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. So is John and the dragon on the seashore together? I mean, what's going on here?
That is the weird thing about it, because it honestly makes more sense for John to say, "I stood on sand."
It does.
Because, it's like, okay, the dragon was enraged with the woman, went off to make war with the rest of his offspring, those who keep the commandments of God and testimony of Jesus. He was so mad that he went and sulked on the sand of the sea.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the way, So yeah, I don't know why. I'm going to have to really look that up.
The Message combines them all.
Really?
13 starts and it says, "And the dragon stood on the shore of the sea. I saw a beast rising from the sea." So it's like both. So John, but I guess he's not in that one. John is not on there. Like that does kind of.
This says,
way to go, Pat. You've opened a can of worms.
I know. This is that the Greek text, estethe, meaning I stood, could be meaning she stood, he stood, I stood, or it could be referring to a person of interest. And this says the implication is that the dragon, the devil, is standing with 1 foot in the sea and 1 foot on the land, calling forth to invoke a spirit being, one of the unholy trinity, and is placing him for reference of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am not getting anything.
Yeah, I had to do some digging. There wasn't much.
Like most people just don't care about this.
Yeah, most people say it's just where it's about the flow of it.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be, though, that it is majority is saying that it is the beast standing on the sand.
Interesting, because NASB, I think, is faithful in that it says, and he, then it says, some manuscripts say I.
Yeah.
So it gives you the option anyway.
Yeah, like say the King James version, it said I. Huh.
Yeah. So they just decided who was standing there.
This commentary says at the very last thing it says, yes, I'm sure my bias or hobby horse is shining forth. I've said enough.
That's funny. I'm going to see on my that commentary says the dragon stands on the seashore. This one says, oh yeah.
It's just crazy to me. King James version just completely did away with that.
Sure did.
I mean, it's just not in there at all.
Okay, so let me see what the New Bible Commentary. Yeah, it says the dragon stood on the shore of the sea to call up an ally from the abyss, his own home. That's lame because it's not the abyss. I don't know what he's talking about there.
All right, we got a new T-shirt. It's going to say, "Who's on the shore?"
Who's on the shore?
Who's on the shore?
Oh yeah. Well, we'll have to look into that a little bit more. Obviously, we're just kind of spinning our wheels trying to get somebody to say something about that.
Yeah. Sorry.
So what do you think? What do you think about chapter 12? It's kind of wild, isn't it?
It is. It is wild. It is wild. It's cool again to see everything tied back in, especially with the Old Testament. It's just neat to see how they did that. It makes sense, like we said, from a context standpoint, people would understand at the time.
And I was anxious to get through chapter 12 so that we could then take a step back and look at chapters 10, 11, and 12 together. We got the little interlude. We got the seventh trumpet. And then we just get this weird scene just dropped in there. I mean, there's no action going on here. It's clearly, he's not saying this is what's going to happen. He's like going back in time almost,
Yeah.
What messed me up was the flood is relating it to all those points back in time.
Yes.
Because, it's real easy just to browse right over that. Like, okay, the flood comes from the dragon's mouth. We don't really quite get what it is, but, I get it. It's after the woman or, the people of God. So let's just keep on cruising. But then when you go back and you place that from a salvation standpoint or a war standpoint, it changes the context.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely does. And it also enlightens everything else that you just read.
Yep.
Because now you know about the war in heaven. You know that it was all centered around the cross, and now he has a short time. He didn't think he was going to have a short time. He thought he was going to have a longer time. And now he's got a short time, and he's locked out of heaven.
And now you understand why the dragon was enraged and went off to make war with the rest of his children.
Absolutely. And once again, he calls him the deceiver of the whole world.
Yep.
So that's how he's going to make war. Mostly is with deception, and that's how it happened in the garden. That's how it's going to happen, continue to happen today. All that stuff. So I think it's a pretty amazing chapter, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think what even messes us up more is the fact that Easter this year comes on 4/20.
All right.
Are we gonna? I better not.
No, we're going to preach about the Most High, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been seeing meme after meme about one guy's like, pastors don't do this, and he starts reeling off phrases like that, the Most High and all this.
The
stuff.
Most High.
It's like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that.
Bring in the wrong palm leaves.
Yeah, come get exactly. high and worship the Most High.
That's hilarious.
We're going to preach on the burning bush.
That's it, the burning bush.
The burning bush.
The devil's lettuce.
That's what I always would call it, the devil's lettuce.
Like this, brother.
I bet you a rise would hit real hard with that after some of that. I'm
grab
still.
Now I got to do it on purpose, Logan.
Yeah, there you go.
Did it? There it goes. Now it worked. Yep. Pat over here just showing out with all his little special effects.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous.
Me and Peter don't have all that.
Too. They're on Zoom. You just got to do certain hand gestures like this. You got to get it within the frame at a certain point.
Okay.
Oh, but I'm not on Zoom. We're on this.
I'm not on Zoom either.
We're all on Zoom.
No, we're on Zencaster. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what's letting me do it.
Oh, really? I don't know. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, Logan and I are going to be over here doing gyrations.
Yeah, our audience is like, "What the crap are they talking about?" No, but yeah, man, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
And people that are listening, if you thought it was awesome, let us know if you thought it was awesome. Comment to us. We want your feedback on here. Are you confused? Do you understand what surprised you? What didn't? Like, did you have some preconceived ideas or notions that now have been changed? We want to hear that.
Or just tell us how we're all out to lunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
But have a little, be able to back it up a little bit. If you're going to just tell us you're wrong, well, then tell us how.
We want to know why. We drag out your Left Behind book and just show us on what page that is. And
Kirk Cameron might comment on this one. He might be mad about it.
I bet he will. Yeah, probably will. Anyway, well, we really enjoy talking about this stuff. We really enjoy interacting with all of y'all. We want you to jump in and join the discussion. And we're past the halfway point now, so we're going to do a few more episodes after this, and then I think we'll get through chapter 15. I'm pretty sure, and then we'll come back and we'll do a whole Revelation Part 3 wrap up series, and we'll get all the way to the end of the book.
Boom!
It'll be very exciting.
It's funny. Speaking of Kirk Cameron, if anyone in the comments comes at me with Kirk Cameron, I'm gonna respond with James Cameron. I'm rather going to go Terminator or Aliens on you.
I was going to say, you got to go.
I'm going to go with James Cagney.
James Cagney.
You dirty rat.
Yeah. Yes, of course you will. Of course you would.
Why would I not?
All right, guys. We appreciate you. And we'll catch you next week.
All right. Sounds like a plan. See y'all.